Yes, so I'll let Danielle, you can start because, you, Danielle did a lot of work on putting this together, and I definitely want to give her props for that. You amazing human, you kick us off.
Okay, sure, I can do that. Thank you very much, Jason. So, hi, my name is Danielle Longville. My pronouns are she, hers, and as Madi mentioned earlier, I'm the digital marketing coordinator for local e-commerce technology agency and web management services agency, GSATi. We're located right in the heart of downtown Denton, Texas. Right now, we're a little spread out like the rest of everybody, I'm sure. And today, we're going to try and walk through a conversation on how to turn your social media into ROI, also known as return on investment. So, with that.
Thank you. And my name is Jason Bador. My pronouns are he, his, and I'm the CEO of GSATi. And Danielle, thank you for the great introduction for GSATi.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving.
So today in our presentation, we're going to define ORI a little bit more past its acronym. We'll talk about how to set some measurable goals, the tools that you'll need to do so and succeed in that way. And then finally, we'll talk about how to create a campaign. And of course, at the end of the conversation, we'll make sure to recap because there is a lot ahead of us, but we're just good. It's a very fun topic.
And so, when we say ROI, I hope everyone is familiar, but in essence, what we're talking about is return on investment. And it's really, what you should be using to measure all of your marketing metrics. You look at, how much that you're spending, not just in cost of ads, if you are doing push ads, but if you are using your in-house talent to create, graphics or create videos, you need to also measure that time as your investment into creating, digital marketing and social media marketing, and reframe that investment into, as your cost, and look at what your return is on the amount of sales and promotions and exposure your business gets through those efforts.
Absolutely. So all of those efforts require setting some sort of measurable goals. So these goals and what I'm about to talk about might be old news for you, especially if you spent any time in trying to get an entrepreneurial degree or something, a business related degree, or perhaps a marketing degree as well. We like to talk about these measurable goals as SMART goals. So specific, measurable, assignable, relevant, and timely. Meaning we're talking about a specific item that you can do within a promotion. So for today's conversation, we're actually going to be talking about a virtual conference. So lots of the examples that we'll use will tie in with promoting and marketing a virtual conference and how that all kind of relates to ROI. So to be specific in that mindset, that would be something like promoting attendance to this online conference. They need to be measurable overall, as in, can we notice any change in revenue or attendance numbers or online engagement? Are these goals attainable? Can we afford to promote it? We do a lot of work with the local business community, and it happens with corporations as well. Everybody's on a budget. Doesn't matter if that budget is $0 or $100,000. There's some sort of money or some sort of related limitation that we have to operate in order for us to do this sustainably. So are these goals attainable? Can we afford to do it? Do we have the manpower to achieve it? As far as relevancy goes, we kind of keep that in a mindset of, are people interested in the content? Is it relevant to your audience? Is it going to benefit your audience in some way? In this case, if you're promoting a virtual conference, there is, an educational benefit as well as possibly some sort of an accreditation benefit as well. And then lastly, we have timely, meaning, is there enough time to achieve it? When it comes to social media and ROI and specifically campaigns, which we'll get into later, they take time to produce as well as facilitate themselves. Things have to come with, the ever passing of time. So those are the kinds of frameworks that we like to keep when we talk about setting our measurable goals.
So very true. Time is of the essence on a lot of things.
Even now, somehow.
Yes. So for this exercise, let's, we figured the best way to kind of walk through this is through an exercise, and actually, through going through like how we would plan something and how we would define it internally at GSATi and within our marketing efforts. And so even though this is very specific on, hosting a successful, virtual conference, a lot of these elements can be used in the same things of, promoting products, promoting gift cards, services, a lot of the same, items can be achieved. But for this one, we're going to use that SMART example specifically for, hosting a virtual conference. So this is obviously something that would be a paid, experience or some sort of exposure that you're trying to get for your business. And we want to walk through, creation of a goal, a plan, and how to measure your results. So let's go to the next slide, Danielle. Let's start working on the goal.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about our goals. We're measuring them. The specific one for this situation is promoting the attendance to the online conference. So how do we plan to do that? We'll have to do a little bit of raising awareness. We're also going to have to sell tickets, just as Jason previously mentioned. When it comes to talking about social media in this mindset of tracking at least a virtual conference, you rely a lot on social engagement, whether that's someone sharing your post, liking it, if we're talking about Instagram, saving it, reposting it, tagging you in Instagram stories. All of that is different forms of engagement. And sometimes engagement can be really great, but unfortunately, on average, we only see about 1% of ticket sales per 100 people who see every post that you release in relation to things like your virtual conference. So without paying for sponsored ads or going even down the deeper financial route in that way, you'd have to share a single post 10,000 times in order to get even 100 or 1,000 tickets. So it's definitely hard to do from an organic level, but at least you have a framework for setting the goal of increasing that attendance.
Exactly. And so that's the main thing when you're setting a goal here is, you can work backwards of it. Your goal is 100 tickets, how many exposures that you're needing to get to be able to reach that goal. And so, you start with, obviously your ticket sales, because that's the, your financial goal of that return on investment. And then you can back from that, like how many engagements do I need to get? And that's that, about that 1%, is going to make it through. And so from those engagements, how many exposures do I have to have as well? And that will get you your total number of like views that you need to have for all of the different posts. And the best way to do it is it is based on views. So, it could be, multiple posts that end up being seen a couple of times by certain people, or it could be one stellar post or one stellar, email campaign that gets seen, only one time by one customer and then gets that purchase of that ticket. So next, we got the plan. So this is the thing that we see that most businesses don't spend a lot of their effort in, and this is probably one of the most valuable pieces. Definitely, we see, a lot of businesses will have a goal, setting up, maybe not extending it down to, how much exposure do we need to, they'll have a goal of, I want to do this much sales, this much ticket sales in this example. But, building this plan is something that we don't, often see. We think, we see a lot of people that just try, like, oh, I'll just create some random posts and, please buy, and there's not much strategy behind it. So creating a plan and building out campaigns is key to getting to your success, and it actually can help with improving your engagement rates. So that way, just a single percentage point, if you get your engagement from 1% to 2%, which is not that hard with a good engagement plan, then right there you're cutting your costs in half of the amount of exposures you're having to create in order to get your the same amount of ticket sales that you're doing. So with building awareness campaigns, the thing to keep in mind there is your campaign is a singular message, and it could be, even though you're hosting a virtual conference, if this is an educational conference that people are buying tickets from, that have multiple sessions that have different levels of learning, you can create a campaign, 2 different campaigns for these 2 different types of sessions, and target those specifically. And a campaign needs to be really you're making your message singular across newsletters, social media posts, blogs, all of the different ways that you can communicate out. You're communicating a singular message as part of that campaign. So make sure that you go through and craft multiple touch points for giving messages to your potential customers based on how they want to receive them. Some want to work through newsletters and email. Some will want to only work on certain social media platforms. Some just want shortened texts. And there are tools, which we'll get into a little bit later, that you can use to measure how your customers are engaging with you and focus their engagement on those specific communication methods. So, the other part that is also overlooked a little bit is that community engagement parts. And so this could be, getting in with specific community leaders that have a lot of sway in either the physical community that you're in. So Denton, like we are here, obviously we've got some great community leaders here that do share out a lot about what organizations and companies are doing. But this could also be community leaders for a virtual conference in the specific economy that you are or the market that you're working in. So if this is an educational conference, who are community leaders that have a big following in that space? If it's a nonprofit space or something like that, who are those leaders in that space? So, getting involved with them, seeing if they're interested, get their engagement, and hopefully they're excited about the, becoming a VIP. Also, doing online contests or posting in certain very active groups. So if you're in on the Denton Downtowners group, or any other specific active group that you're in where people communicate a lot, posting messages from yourself about sharing this business thing in there can usually have a higher engagement rate than just corporate posts. Now, after going to the plan, obviously, we need to measure results of your plan, of how you put together these different campaigns. And I'll turn that to Danielle to talk through about measuring results.
Yes, absolutely. And this part is what I like to refer to as the way that you can communicate the ROI to other members of your team. So if you're not working by yourself, which I know there are a lot of solopreneurs on this call today, and so this is kind of a reflexive conversation you'd be having. So, but what we see with larger teams is that you have a finance department, you have a marketing department, you have another group of people who are developers, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you communicate where the ROI, is coming from with all of your social media? So right here, I've got a little example screenshot of a past promotion that we did with Main Street Association, which we are proud platinum supporters and members of. And I hope you all got to catch the online streams of Twilight Tunes. Really enjoyed that. So when we look at snapshots like this in certain insights programs, again, something we'll talk about in a minute, this specifically is from Facebook Insights. So we're looking to answer questions like, how was the engagement? In this case as well, we sold tickets to this event. So how many tickets were sold? Did anybody bother sharing the post? And did it produce any kind of revenue? All but the last one is answered pretty much in this snapshot here for you. The revenue bit is something that's a little bit more behind the scenes. But yeah, so as far as engagement goes, breaking it down in this screenshot, you have a total viewership of a little bit over 1,600, almost 1,700. As far as overall engagement, 12 different shares for individual ones. You have a little bit of click-through engagement here. And you do have one link click here. So this kind of shows that mathematical kind of mindset we were looking at earlier in talking about establishing plans and SMART goals. Is even though this post saw over 1,000 people, we've really only had one person click the link to go buy the ticket. So it's definitely a bit of a battle there. Oh goodness, I think I've stepped ahead. Pardon me. Oh no, I stepped backwards. There we go. Yeah, so that's pretty much what you're kind of looking for when it comes to breaking down a few questions that help you better understand what your work is doing, what it looks like, is it or is it not working in ways that not only you can understand, but the rest of your team can kind of comprehend as well and see the validity behind the work that you're putting into social media. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jason just to do a little recap of our exercise.
Yeah, so in essence, for this exercise, was, we want to try to host a successful conference. So our goal is, to generate revenue and attendance for this virtual conference. We're selling tickets. I would put a number to this in the case, if this was my business, I want to sell 100 tickets or 1,000 based on, kind of what my virtual conference can experience. Then, after that's the goal, we would then create our campaign to get exposure. If it's 100 tickets that I need to sell, I want to make sure that through our newsletters, social ads, different ways that we're doing it, that we want to get this exposed, at least 10,000 times to be able to make sure, that, hopefully I can get my end goal, 100 tickets. And hopefully, you get there faster and you sell out earlier, so and that's something that's strategically measurable. So if you apply that math, you can say, okay, so I just need to make sure, if I add up all of the Facebook post views and all of the, email opens and all of the Instagram views and texts, sent, then, if I get 10,000 of those viewed, then most likely, statistically, I'll get my 100 tickets sold. So hopefully sell it earlier, and then the result is, as you're going through, so this is not just at the end, don't wait till the end of looking at, how everything did at the end of it. As you're running through your campaigns, pay attention to the results of individual posts and the results of emails. Your audience, depending on who you're reaching out to, some of them may like, longer newsletter style, informational emails. Some of them may only like little short emails that are just, announcements. With posts on Facebook or Instagram, or, maybe your customers, your potential customers like something that's more humorous. So that, you have a little bit more jovial tone, or maybe you need to be more serious, or, what's the image style that you need to do? As you see posts have better engagement, look at how that post was, or that email was it's constructed compared to another post that didn't have that same engagement rate, and fine tune your future posts to kind of meet what is getting better engagement. And so that way you get your successful virtual conference.
Absolutely.
So next, Danielle, you want to talk to us about a little bit of the tools that we like to use that help, because this seems probably very scary. I know it probably for some that maybe haven't, gone through this, like, okay, well, how am I going to see all this and know all this and plan it all out? And, how do we make it easier to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite daunting. I mean, for any size of team. I mean, it's you're talking about operating in a mindset that asks you to be fiscal and creative and intentional in very limited spaces. So it gets a little crazy. With that in mind, we do have a few tools. So talking about tools that you need in order to make all of this happen, as we've discussed in our exercise, analytics is going to be your number one indicator of engagement. Like Jason said, you'll spend a lot of time comparing and contrasting between individual posts, platform to platform, trying to figure out what it is that's working and what doesn't work. These insights, programs, softwares, they're built in for the most part with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. LinkedIn, which I believe was also just purchased by Facebook, should be seeing a lot of improvements on their individual analytics as well. Overall speaking, however, if you want to engage with analytics for your website as well, I know we're focused on social media today, but it's obviously common practice to redirect people to your website in that content. So Google Analytics is a really great tool. I can speak personally for myself and a couple of my team members that are on here today that we are all actually trying to complete Google Analytics training ourselves so that we can be better informed and certified in that venture. But it shares a lot of information that kind of really breaks down who's engaging with your content, where are they from, what's their age group, what is their income level like, other aspects that kind of give you a better personification of what your overall audience is that you're engaging with. And I know Jason's talked about it today, and we've talked about it previously, but having like a brand persona is very helpful in all of these efforts as well. So with that, we also recommend having a content scheduling software. As much as we all wish we had enough time to go through and individually share each social media post each day, it's simply not possible. And it saves you more time to dedicate to planning towards your overarching campaigns while your scheduler works for you. A shared calendar is also going to be really important. This calendar needs to be easily accessible by multiple members of your team or multiple colleagues, whoever you're working with on your brand. We use it to plot out content, which we'll talk about plotting and planning in just a moment. But it helps communicate to the rest of your team what's going out, what kind of campaigns are running right now, and what we're looking at in the future. I see your question in the chat, and we're actually going to talk about that next. So with that segue, some programs we recommend.
And some of them that are actually pretty awesome. So the couple of things that Danielle mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, Insights and Analytics, these are free as part of your Facebook and business accounts. So make sure, I'm not sure how many of you all have gone to it, but Facebook has been redirecting a lot of its analytics and like measurement tools into a new website that's business.facebook.com. So you still have a lot of your normal insights and analytics you can actually see on your Facebook page. But if you log into business.facebook.com, you can actually merge both your Instagram and Facebook accounts. And if you're using any chat tools or stuff like that, Facebook has a lot of different tools out there. It can merge all of that into one business analytics and measurements account, and this is all for free. So it's, and they have got education. Facebook, part of that business platform, there's training and even training classes and certifications you can get on it. Same thing with analytics. Google Analytics is free. Most of the new modern platforms like Squarespace and Wix and Shopify, all of these different platforms. It's very easy for you to put your Google Analytics code on there. They usually have a place just in the settings where you can just put in your code, and then it'll automatically start tracking all this data on your site. And that's a free service that Google offers, and the training tools that they have for their Google Analytics University, that's also free with Google. So we definitely recommend that. Some of the paid for things that you will have to get into is things like Buffer and Sprout Social and Canva for scheduling. And I know, Danielle, you do a lot of the scheduling for our clients. What do you feel kind of are some of the best tools out there that you like the best for value? Obviously, there's some really expensive, cool tools, but there's also some very valuable, inexpensive tools.
Absolutely. Honestly, over the last 4 or 5 years that I've been with GSATi, I think we've tried pretty much everything that's out there. And as far as free and affordable, I would have to go with Buffer. And I'm very excited about Canva, even though that is not necessarily a free feature. It was part of their Canva Pro program, but Canva's doing a lot to kind of be a one-stop shop for solopreneurs like that, for us, solopreneurs like us rather. But as far as a content scheduler that also has some built-in analytics at an affordable price, I think your entry level, aside from free, is $15 a month, would be Buffer. There is a lot of built-in integration, even through Instagram. You can now directly schedule and tag and include segmented hashtag groupings. So if you're doing different campaigns, you can automatically insert that information into your Instagram posts, into your Facebook and Twitter as well. They also offer LinkedIn. But yeah, that would be the one that I would currently recommend. Now, as soon as Canva gets the rest of their stuff together, I'm very excited about that because I love that program for content generation purposes and design sharing. So if the scheduler is worth it, that would probably be my number 2 recommendation for sure.
And then as far as, doing shared calendars, one of the most commonly used one is Google Calendar. It does, it is part of your either Gmail or G Suite for a business if you're using that. It's a very, very affordable tool that's usually integrated with your email account. So, you can create shared calendars with that and invite people into that calendar, and they'll get notifications of things being moved and that sort of stuff. Also, Outlook and Office 365 has shared calendars that you can create if you're using that software. And we do recommend using a calendaring tool to build out those what your structure of your content and your campaign is going to be, if you're collaborating with with things. And these are some of the things that are free that are probably already part of your existing email structure. Some tools you may find, like for example on Squarespace, they have a marketing tool where you can create campaigns within that piece, and it can build out its own calendar as well. And so does Shopify. They have a marketing tool that you can create a campaign and build out and schedule your posts out through those as well. But for actually creating and crafting and planning out your posts and your emails and everything that you're going to do, we definitely recommend looking at that from a calendar perspective, because when you just see a list of dates, it becomes harder to notice, like, okay, well, is that close to a holiday, or is that, Friday or Saturday? How are these open rates, and exposure and engagement actually happening based on, your followers' own schedules? So the calendar is seeing your posts that you're planning on doing before you actually go create them and run them out is helpful to see it in the calendar type view.
Absolutely. Love a calendar. I have multiple. If I did not have multiple, I would certainly forget.
So once you have the tools, then obviously we've got to create a campaign. And actually, let me let Danielle, you can talk through this. I know you do a lot
Sure.
of different campaigns.
Yes. You know, we're fortunate to have many clients who have very robust missions and things that they do. So we do have a lot of experience in creating campaigns. So in this next part of our presentation, we're going to focus on obviously creating a campaign. We're going to talk a little bit about plotting and planning content, which we've briefly touched on, as well as review just briefly on how to create engaging as well as accessible graphics and designs. We'll touch on verifying and implementing those strategic goals that have been reviewed thus far. And then, of course, we'll revisit our favorite, the schedule and waiting game. It's going to be a great overview of the actual footwork behind all of your goal setting and the planning that we've talked about up till this point.
And so the first step, really on creating this campaign is kind of planning out your content and plotting, where you want your content to be posted and what type of content that you're going to be creating. Again, remember to use the shared calendars, Google Calendars, Outlook, Office 365. There's also some, there's free and low cost tools like Trello and Monday.com that you can use to create your plan and your actual campaign. One thing that we like to mention a lot is the 80-20 rule on your content, and that's really the market is. For digital marketing, it's not like TV ads or billboard ads or radio ads where you're just pushing sales. Like, those are the messaging, you're just talking at someone. The best way to get engagement and get your message out there is to blend talking about your service, about your business, about the things you're trying to sell with other pieces of content that's educational, entertainment, and engaging content that will encourage people to engage with you. So usually you want to keep your sales promotions to about 20% of the content and 80% of the content into that engaging and building that audience. Really, the more you get that engaged audience, then the more these platforms like Facebook are going to be serving your content to that client. And so, someone may see a post for the first time that is engaging because it's informational, and they either like it or share it. And then within the next few days, or really later, if they keep scrolling down, other posts or other things that you've put out there will be shared with that person, and it could be from a different date than what they saw. This, your timeline, it's kind of funny, your timeline is really not a timeline anymore of like this is most recent to oldest. It is definitely kind of all over the place based on what the platform thinks that you're going to engage with when you're doing things. And so we put some recommendations based on the types of platforms, because they are, kind of fit into a little bit of some niches. And this we grabbed off of online, just some, research that we can put there. One thing to note, especially on, obviously Instagram is completely all photo driven, but even Facebook should be considered all photo or video driven, because the likelihood of getting engagement on a post that does not include some sort of visual element, it goes down significantly. You have, a lot less likelihood that someone's even going to see it if it's text only. And keep in mind, you can also use, Facebook now has those ways to turn text updates into graphical elements. For short posts, they do have the ability for you to build out a little, graphic as a part of your text so that it's more visually engaging. Let's see, and then one question we've got: do you have an order of content in order of importance? Order of content.
If by in the graphic, do you mean the things that are listed in order of importance? I wouldn't say no. I think if you want to If you'd like to think of your content in a prioritized framework, I would say making sure that all of your pieces, as Jason has mentioned, have some sort of an image or a video associated with it. Video being a higher priority because we see a lot more engagement, about 60% more, with content that has some sort of a video attached to it. But these are all just suggestions on on this graphic, really, of just the types of things that you can do with those platforms.
And I think you have an example of you know, what we're talking about when we come to, you know, creating engaging graphics and stuff, right, Danielle?
Yes, I have one right here. So this is a little bit of an example of like pulling it in together with also making sure that your content is accessible. It's something that has thankfully become more on the digital forefront within the last few years, based on my personal experience. And by accessible, I mean that your content needs to be accessible to people who are of different levels of ability to engage with your content. So people who are hard of hearing, or people who struggle with vision problems, or possibly blind. Essentially people who use text readers. And so with that, oh no, don't go anywhere. No, oh, I'm so sorry. That's the next example. Excuse me. Thank you. So sorry, excuse me. So with that, this is the example that I've pulled from Main Street Association. This image does have some text on it, and that while that's not necessarily something we always promote using, we understand that sometimes it's important to have. Our recommendation, however, is that if you choose to feature a graphic that does have some copy on it, that you include that exact copy in the in your post as well. So that can be incorporating it into the actual message behind your focused post. So in this case, this is promoting a virtual sip and shop that we had with Main Street not too long ago. And in our intro copy, you've got where it's going to be, the virtual sip and shop, who's hosting, etc. And then we also have an alternative text for the image in the bottom half of the image description. So this is really specific for Facebook, for Instagram and Facebook. I understand that it's a little bit more difficult with Twitter, but they also have some, and you know, you work with what you have. And it's just the intention behind doing your best to make your content more accessible is the real key. And so in addition to alternative text for your image, as it's listed here, a picture of the downtown square with the listed words on it, we also recommend camel case for your hashtags. So, and I have a great example for kind of related to that in the next example, which is of what not to do. But as far as text readers go, when they're reviewing a hashtag, words are read separately based on the first letter being capitalized of each word. So like Denton Main Street Association, the D and the M and the S and the A should each be capitalized, or it's possible that the text reader will read multiple words together to where it becomes indiscernible if you were to hear it out loud. So always make sure that when you're planning out your hashtags for your posts and for your overall campaigns, that you've gone through those and made sure they're all in camel case format. It'll also improve your searchability on your websites and just searching within individual platforms as well. Algorithms are better able to kind of filter through that content when they're better to able read the associated copy or hashtags. Last thing I wanted to touch on kind of refers to included copy on websites and link designations. As you can see, if you were to have an included link, we would prefer, it's preferred to have an underline underneath that designated link. Otherwise, it's possible that a user will not be able to differentiate between whether or not camel case is included in a link or not. With color contrast, we recommend basing everything on stark differences with light text on a dark background, dark text on a light background. There's also issues with people who suffer from color blindness, who are not able to differentiate between, and excuse me, I'm blanking on it, is it the reds and blues or reds and greens over one another? Those color combinations are ones that we recommend avoiding, especially in your web design, because that makes it almost impossible for your copy to be read. This can happen also in newsletters and on the graphics that you choose to use on social media as well. So while it may seem a little daunting at first, it's super important to remember that your promotional material, your social media, and your related marketing content is as accessible as possible and as feasible for your business. So that's our overall good example. I just wanted to briefly share with you this very silly, which I also have some other points to make too. I just wanted to share this quick tweet with you. As you can see, so let me first complete the lesson part and then we can have a giggle together. Closed captioning on videos, super important. It's not just a beneficial thing for people who are hard of hearing, but also for individuals who, it's very common now with Gen Zs and younger demographics, or people who just like to view content without any audio on. If you don't have an associated caption, you're more than likely going to be skipped or nexted or unfollowed because your information can't be processed in any kind of situation. So it's very important to have any kind of, even and Instagram stories as well. Instagram actually just released a program called Threads. It's a free app you can install. I believe it's available outside of iOS applications, but you can use its integration to auto-generate captions for your Instagram stories, which can be very helpful as well. And then this last thing, which ties in with our bad example, we recommend refraining from using coded fonts in your descriptions and your bios and your related posts. This is what happens when you use coded fonts on your social media.
Small t, mathematical sans serif italic small h, mathematical sans serif italic small 1, mathematical sans serif italic small n, mathematical sans serif italic small k, it's mathematical script small c, mathematical script small u, mathematical script small t, e2, mathematical sans serif bold small d, mathematical sans serif bold small r, mathematical sans serif bold small 1, mathematical sans serif bold small t, math.
As you can see, that's not discernible by any means. It is literally going through and reading the coded application for every individual letter. So while I understand that people really enjoy using it, and it is very reminiscent of MySpace and all of those like very curated, cute designs, it's really painful for people who have to use text readers to get through any content on your page, which will essentially drive them away. So a little bit of a brief example of what not to do, and hopefully you enjoyed also what to do. Yes, very painful.
T, mathematical sans serif italic small h, mathematical sans.
Oh, sorry. Gonna kill that just in case that happens again. Yes.
You're just trying to make a big point.
Yes, I'm making a very succinct point. I see we have a question in the chat. What coded text means?
Do you just mean that the different text fonts?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, do you have certain fonts that you know are standard for like Helvetica or those things, or does it matter?
Well, in this case, so this is something that would be directly pasted into social media. We just recommend not doing anything like that at all and just using their basic text feed, just typing in it as usual or coded. Yeah.
No, I mean, I understood that it was different text fonts, but I didn't know if there was something that they did to make it read like that.
Some people do, like, so some people will purposely try to do it that way. The other thing
Right.
that can happen is you may be copying and pasting
Right.
font or copy from a document. Maybe it's a Word document or a PowerPoint or something like that that has multiple fonts on that. And when you copy and paste out of those, in a lot of cases, you're also copying the encoded fonts and HTML within that copy paste. And so sometimes it could be done on accident just by copying and pasting from a document that you had versus typing it out. Or some people may try to do it to look cute or to make things look different, make their post look different on social media.
Because I mean, I do copy and paste from a Word doc, but are you saying you need
Mm-hmm.
to use a text doc only or something to do
It's
that?
best to make sure that it's in plain text. So you use like your notes file or something like that. You can, both Mac and PCs have a notepad type system, and you can usually turn the formatting to just plain text only. If you drop it in there before you paste it into your website or into a post or something like that, it will strip out all of that copy, all that code, and just give you the plain text. So next, obviously creating these engaging and pieces that, these things that all people can see, and hear and read and go through that's accessible. The next part is, really verifying and implementing these strategic goals. So, this is where you're going from, you've already created, a lot of your graphics out. We do recommend, like we were talking about, use a scheduler tool and pre-plan your content out. If you're going to sit down and make a graphic and you've already kind of gotten into that headspace, it probably takes you nearly as a percentage the same amount of time to go in and create 5 or 6 graphics or 5 or 6 posts that you can schedule out for different times, different days, based on, again, based on what you've learned about your demographic. So if you're going to sit down to do one post, it's best to just sit down and do, 3, 4, or 5 of them at a time, and, block off 30 minutes or, or an hour or what it is, whatever, you need to create, a several amount of pieces of content all in one piece. This not only helps with time management, but it also helps keeping you in that space and seeing and how you're communicating this out. So it makes your campaigns look more streamlined because you're creating these all at one time versus remembering what you created last week now when you're trying to create a new one for this week, a new post for this week.
Absolutely.
And so, as you go in, you put your posts directly into your scheduling tool, whichever one that you're using. Make sure that you're checking in and verifying, okay, this is the correct image, this is the final one that we wanted to use, this is the hashtags that we wanted to use. Make sure that you're implementing exactly what you've already spent the effort researching and working on. And that's kind of, great for your final check. And most of these tools allow you to edit a post that's in the future in case you did forget something, but you don't want something going live or getting posted automatically that you forgot to update. So you don't ever want to intentionally have a drafted post that's scheduled and is not complete, because it's very easy to just forget that.
Been there, done that. Not good. Not good. Definitely not. Yes.
Yep.
Great explanation. So with that, the waiting game. So everything's been approved. All of your graphics are ready. Your links are prepped. It looks good to go. This screenshot I have for you right here is from the Buffer calendar management tool. And so just like Jason said, you're able to kind of view and see what your campaigns look like, what content is coming out and when. And you're checking to make sure there's not any kind of overlap, so you're not losing followers because they've seen the same product promotion across all 4 of your platforms. And then you play the waiting game. You just have to wait. Like all campaigns, The success can only be measured after time has been spent promoting that information to your audience, and they need time to process it, share it, comment, and engage with it. So you kind of have to wait, but while you're playing that waiting game, we encourage you to find ways to engage with your users as they're engaging with your content, replying back to comments when necessary and as soon as possible, reacting to comments, you know, whatever fits your brand's voice. And then once you've reached kind of the end of one of your campaigns, you're able to review, okay, what happened over this last week? What happened over the last 3 weeks? Do we have any results to review? So that pretty much covers creating a campaign. So Jason, do you want to recap for us before we
Sure. So before we get to questions, let's just recap kind of where we get. So you want to start off by kind of defining that ROI. You want to know what is the revenue you're trying to produce from this piece, and then what's your investment going to be? How much is it going to take? And this, it may be a little rocky at first, figuring out how much investment it's going to take you of like time and buying items and buying photos, stock photos, and all that sort of stuff. But once you do this a couple of times, you'll be able to fine tune that ROI. Make sure you've got measurable goals. So, start with the basics. It's very easy to see in real time how many people are seeing or clicking on your data. And so if your end goal is this much money, how do we get to that much? Create campaigns that are unified and in synced and are scheduled out together. Implement this plan, and then review all of your stuff as it's going in, not only just at the end of your campaign, also review as the campaign is going. You can always tweak a campaign. That's one of the main reasons why we tell a lot of, like local small businesses down here, if they're, wanting to do an event or have a sale or something like that in their local business, Main Street can help. Main Street is one of the companies that our organizations we work with a lot, but we really need, 2 or 3 weeks notice, so that way we can help implement with you all with them a campaign and adjust as we see, what's doing well and what's not doing well. And then you just repeat it and keep doing the same thing over and over. And as you keep doing these things, it's going to become more like clockwork. You're going to be better at it. You can be more efficient. So that means your investment goes down and your revenue goes up and more profit. So with that, I guess we can probably, you can find us, obviously Stoke is a great resource. So, for those of you on Facebook or those on this call, we definitely recommend Stoke as a great resource for entrepreneurs, both in Denton and outside of Denton. Stoke, thank you for all that you all do for the entrepreneur community and for the small business community. We definitely appreciate you all. For us, here's some contacts that you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and our website. And of course, you'll see Danielle and myself on social here and there and everywhere. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. With that, I know we only have a few minutes left, so we can open to some questions, Mari, if you'd like.
Cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and end your screen share and we can open it up. All right. Anyone has a question, just jump in.
I see more friends joined while we were presenting. I and Jamie.
I have a question. I noticed you didn't put YouTube in your social media posts.
So
yeah,
YouTube,
correct.
Yeah, it is definitely a very valuable tool. It is way more now like a television network than really it's ever been before. So it does take a lot of effort. And YouTube, if not done well, can cause more harm for your company than benefit. So it is extremely powerful, and we do recommend once you kind of master these other social media platforms, then YouTube is another great a great avenue. You just need to make sure that the video is produced well. It doesn't have to be, studio quality, but you need to be able to be easily seen. It needs to not be blurry, not be shaky, and easily heard. And those are some of the hard things, especially on the microphone side of things. And there are some expensive tools that you can use to make sure that people can hear you very well. But a lot of times people don't realize, that if there's static, if there's wind, if there's interference on like sound, people will click off and unfollow and unlike YouTube posts. But once you do get into that and you start creating, Facebook Lives are a great way to start. There's a little bit more leniency on Facebook Live and Facebook videos. And then once you start mastering being able to create those videos there, moving to YouTube is great because YouTube's own revenue model for themselves will push your content out to other people based on the exposure that you see.
Absolutely. And same with Instagram TV. I think if you want a little bit of practice, IGTV is a great way to practice engaging with your audience and creating videos in a way that is super comfortable and easy for people to access. And then once you get the hang of it from there and maybe get a little bit more learned behind editing and whatnot, there are some free apps out there, and you're welcome to contact us. I've got some resources I can share as well. But yeah, definitely would recommend starting out super small in that way, as you trying out the YouTube venture can really burn you if not done right.
And Blake made a good mention on there are some great places out there to get some free or inexpensive videos, photos, icons. There's all sorts of things like that. But it is key to make sure that wherever you do get those, that you do look at what their rules are for using their free items. Because just because they say this is a free service or free thing doesn't mean it's free for everyone and free for any type of use. So they do have a little bit of caveats, and you don't want someone coming after you for a single image that you posted and then now they want thousands of dollars. So definitely make sure you look at those.
I would also recommend Canva. They've actually really upgraded their video integration features and transition features as well. They also have a really great library of stock footage or stock photos rather that are free or affordable. Same with their design icons as well. And they have now added an audio library that you can choose from. So definitely going to be a really great one-stop shop place once they get that scheduler going. I'm going to probably make that migration, honestly. So yeah, any other questions?
I had a quick question. So for doing bulk batch content for scheduling for social, typically what for recommendations, would you do it like 2 weeks out, a month out? Because with how Instagram and Facebook is constantly changing, I guess rule of thumb, it used to be you want to do it a month out, but since it's changing so much, would it be better to do it like 2 weeks out?
I actually do every 2 weeks, and I check in once a week, if not once a day. If I've scheduled stuff out for 2 weeks, I'll look at it once a week, but then I'm going to each platform natively and seeing what the engagement like is there as well on kind of a daily basis, just in case. While Buffer does have like comment engagement and for Instagram, it is easier for me on a personal level to navigate to those individual client accounts and engage just like from my phone. But that might just be the millennial in me. I'm not sure. But as far as scheduling stuff out batch wise, about 2 weeks, because again, you're absolutely right. Facebook is constantly changing. I talked about this in another meeting today. They've been going through changes since the election season, and now they're about to release those changes to the rest of the platform. So we're about to see even more changes coming as usual. So great question. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So we are past 1 o'clock. So unfortunately we have to end the meeting, but thank you all for attending. And thank you especially to Jason and Danielle. As always, y'all did a great presentation. So much valuable information. So thank you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. It's always a joy. And like I said earlier, if y'all have any questions, concerns, we listed our contact stuff earlier, but I can get some contact info over to Madi as well to answer any other questions y'all might have.
Awesome. Okay, y'all. Bye. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Have a great day. Bye, y'all. Good